Ever get the feeling like some things are just deliberately kept hidden from us?
Oh, yeah, like they're locked away in some vault somewhere, never to see the light of day.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're diving into today, this whole battle over the Epstein files. You know, what's really in them and why is it so hard to get a look?
Well, it's a tricky situation, right? Because on the one hand, you have the government saying they need to keep things secret for security reasons, but on the other hand, the public deserves to know what's going on.
I mean, it's a classic case of transparency versus secrecy, right?
Absolutely, and this case kind of takes that to the extreme.
So for anyone who's somehow missed this whole thing, Jeffrey Epstein, the whole deal, he was this financier, right?
Right, yeah.
Convicted of some pretty awful crimes.
Sex crimes, yeah.
And then he dies in prison under some super suspicious circumstances.
Yeah, a lot of people still have questions about how that all went down.
Totally. And there's all these theories flying around, like, was he running a much bigger operation than anyone realized?
Like a sex trafficking ring, potentially involving some really powerful people.
Exactly. And that's where these Epstein files come in. They could be the key to unlocking this whole mess,
Oh, yeah. We could be talking about financial records, flight logs, emails. Who knows what else they found in those places he owned?
Witness statements, right? Potentially all sorts of evidence that could finally shed some light on what really went on and who else might have been involved.
That's right. But the problem is actually getting your hands on them. It's been a total nightmare.
It's become this huge fight, right? You've got Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's not exactly known for backing down from a challenge.
She's got that bulldog reputation for sure.
Right, and she's going head-to-head with the current FBI director, Kash Patel.
And she's accusing the FBI of basically stonewalling her, right? Like they're only giving her bits and pieces of the files, claiming the rest are too sensitive to release.
Which, to me, just raises even more questions.
Right. It makes you wonder what they're so desperate to hide.
I've been surprised by how quiet the FBI has been through all this.
Yeah, their silence is pretty deafening, isn't it?
Some people might see that as them admitting guilt, while others might say it's part of some bigger strategy. What do you think?
It's hard to say for sure, but it definitely makes you think. Maybe they're trying to avoid throwing more fuel on the fire, Or maybe they're hunkering down, getting ready for some legal battle.
Which is interesting because Bondi seems ready to take this all the way.
Oh, absolutely. She's not letting this one go. She's talking about congressional oversight, which means we could see hearings, investigations, the whole 9 yards. And she's even hinted at taking legal action to force the FBI to hand over those documents.
So what would that look like? How could she actually force the FBI's hand legally?
Well, there are a few options. She could file a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit, a FOIA request. That would basically force the FBI to show their cards and explain why they think those documents should stay classified.
Make them prove it in court.
Exactly. Or she could try to get a court order to compel the FBI to produce the documents, which is a whole other legal can of worms.
Probably take forever, too.
Ooh, for sure. It would be a long, drawn-out process, and there's no guarantee she'd win.
This case has become a breeding ground for conspiracy theories, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah. This whole thing is practically tailor-made for them. You've got people saying Epstein didn't kill himself, that his death was staged.
Or that there are all these powerful figures working behind the scenes to cover up his crimes.
Exactly. And you know what? The FBI's silence just feeds into all that, right? It creates this vacuum where distrust and speculation run wild.
People are just trying to fill in the gaps, right?
That's exactly it. They see this lack of transparency and they start to come up with their own explanations.
It makes sense in a way.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. When you're dealing with a case like this, one that involves someone like Epstein and potentially touches on some of the most powerful people in the world, of course people are going to jump to conclusions.
It all feels pretty high stakes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This isn't just about uncovering the truth about Epstein anymore. It's about public trust in these institutions, especially the FBI.
Because if it comes out that they are deliberately withholding information, well, that's a pretty big deal, right?
It would be huge. Think about it. It could have a chilling effect on future investigations. If people don't trust the FBI to be transparent, they might be less likely to cooperate.
And how are they supposed to hold powerful people accountable if they can't get the information they need?
Exactly. Plus, it would erode public trust, not just in the FBI, but in the government as a whole. And when that trust is gone, it's really hard to get it back.
So what do you think happens next? Do we end up in court, or does the FBI eventually cave and release the files?
It's really a toss-up at this point. The FBI is definitely feeling the heat, not just from Bondi, but from the media and a public at large. But they also have this duty to protect sensitive information, and I'm sure they'd say to protect ongoing investigations.
It's a tough spot for them to be in.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they play this.
So we've got this battle over the Epstein files that has turned into this huge fight about government transparency.
Exactly. It's like this one case has become the perfect example of this much bigger issue.
And the outcome could be huge. It could affect Epstein's victims and their search for justice, and it could also shake people's faith in institutions like the FBI.
And it really shows that the fight for transparency never ends. It takes constant work, both from the public and from those in power.
It's definitely something we all need to be paying attention to. I mean, just think about it. A former attorney general is having to fight this hard to get information from the government. What does that say about where we are as a society?
It definitely leaves us with more questions than answers.
That's something for all of you listening to think about.
And let us know what you come up with.
Exactly. Let us know.